Has anybody ever tried to rate a tornado?
And I would like to know why you can never get to the end of a rainbow.
What's the worst disaster in Iowa?
What are your top 3 movies that involve weather?
Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome into Weathered Questions, the podcast where we answer the meteorology questions on your radar. We're at the last episode for season 4. Almost coming up on a full year here, Kai. It's absolutely wild, and we're so thrilled that you guys have been along with us for the journey. If you want to keep hearing episodes and have more questions that you'd like us to answer, well, that's exactly what we do here. So be sure to send those in, weatheredquestions@gmail.com. Kai O'Mara, my co-host, joins me. My name is Jan Kaj. Kai, how are you doing?
Very, very good. Very good. Yeah, it's wild to think about as many episodes as we have done, which essentially came from a text message idea. And that was it.
Yeah.
So,
just hey, we should start a podcast.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. And so we're in the week right before Memorial Day right now. And unless we forget to say it at the very tail end, we're going to take next week as a break. And then we're going to recompose and get going here in the first week of June. So there'll be no new episode next week. We'll be enjoying some family time next week with Memorial Day in the area. So just a heads up.
But you can still send your questions in. We'll get to them when we come back. We promise.
Yep, the email inbox never sleeps. It's always awake, and it's ready to go. So we're going to get into...
Just like weather never sleeps. Our inbox never sleeps. It is there for you.
Yes, this is kind of a cloud type question, but kind of not. So I got a message from Kyle in Cedar Rapids. And I have to just describe to you what's happening because I'm not able to show you a photo or a video.
It's like reverse Pictionary.
It is. So I'm going to try and paint this as best I can. So he asks, what's going on here? And have you ever seen something like this before? And what he's looking at is he's looking at a layer of clouds in the sky. And it almost seems like the edge has a vibrant rainbow around the outside of it. That's what he is seeing. It's not actively raining and it's not cold at the ground. So it's a warm situation. There's no rain falling, but yet around the edge of this very tall cloud, there's a vibrant amount of color. So Jan, what do you think's going on here?
Short answer, it's a cloud rainbow. It's cloud iridescence. So that is something that we talk about as meteorologists when you have generally pretty high up thin clouds. So something, maybe there's a lot of tiny water droplets or ice droplets, ice crystals that are in those very thin clouds, and you have sunshine or light, generally sunshine, going through them and creating the same concept as a rainbow, but cloud iridescence, I believe, comes from diffraction.
Yes.
Instead of refraction and reflection, which are rainbow terms, things that we are a little bit more familiar with. But again, very similar process of light bending and light, bouncing around. We'll keep it at that because, as we have striven to do for the last year, trying to keep things as basic as possible so that it's easy to understand. So light bouncing around through those water droplets or ice crystals that is creating essentially a rainbow in that very thin layer of cloud.
Yes. And those ice crystals or those super cool drops, even though they need to be thin so the sun can get through them, there needs to be a lot of them. So it needs to be pretty dense in that area. And it is one of those cases literally where the sun angle has got to be perfect. So it doesn't last like all afternoon. It's a minute or 2 or 3 type of phenomenon, and it has not come around often. Again, it's got to be perfect angle, perfect conditions for the viewer at the ground, and then also, perfect angle from the sun coming through the atmosphere to hit it. But again,
that's something we deal with a lot with our different light phenomena in the sky, with it, whether it's a sundog, when you get those 2 little kind of bowed rainbows on either side of the sun, or an actual rainbow, depending on where you are versus where the sun is versus where that water is, compared to maybe where a different person is, a different observer, somewhere else on Earth. Like, even if they're not super far away, they may not see that same rainbow because it all depends on the different angles and orientations and where you are with respect to everything else, the light and the water and everything.
Yep. So that's what it is, buddy. So Kyle was the one texting. Wondering
Thanks,
what
Kyle.
that was. So cloud iridescence is what that is called. I know your family gets together frequently. Put that one on the trivia night. See if any of them get it. See if any of them get it. And then, shoot me another text if you need something. But Jan, you are in the position now where you do a whole lot with science, technology, engineering, and math. Mm-hmm. And as a result, we've kind of got, just as our season and closer here, we got just a couple of experiment ideas and kind of things to do at home. I'm telling you, and as a parent, when summer hits, you're like, oh my gosh, they're out of school. What? Oh,
what
no. Oh no, there's 45 hours a week I've got to do to keep them occupied. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about a weather experiment, Jan. What's the first one on the list for you?
I threw a couple in this show because I feel like we've talked a couple times about, we've got a fun experiment for that. And then we always run out of time because we love talking because we talk for a living, right? So we have got a couple fun experiments to talk through with you. One of them that I know came up in a recent episode. I should have pulled the number, but I don't know which episode. So just go back and re-listen to every episode. That'd do us a big favor. But the super cooled water experiment, I know we somewhat recently talked about that one. And essentially what you do with that one, super cooled water is water that is below 32 degrees, but it's still liquid. And it's really hard to get that to happen. But if you put a water bottle into the freezer and just kind of monitor it, so, check back on it and, you can't just leave it in there overnight. It's going to freeze. But if you leave it in there for probably a couple hours, maybe hour or two or so, it probably shouldn't freeze just yet. If you put a new water bottle uncracked into there, it'll get really, really cold. If you want it to happen faster, put a wet paper towel around it and it'll cool down even faster. But that's a little risky because of the next step. Because what you're going to do when you take it out, you can do one of two things. Sometimes you can just crack the top and you'll see the water basically from the top down turn to ice, and it'll just go from being a liquid water to a solid ice cube. Sometimes though that doesn't work. And so you have to pound it on the table. Again, still have the lid mostly on, just a little bit of a gap, but if you pound it on the table, essentially what happens is you kind of get the molecules moving in there. And this works best with a water bottle. And again, something that is sealed because you want it to be pure water. You don't want it to be something that comes out of the tap. Because no matter where you are, there's other stuff in that tap water. Whereas preferably if you can get that pure water, that's how you're going to be able to get it down to that super cooled level, below freezing, still as liquid without those impurities in it. And then when you kind of bang it on the table, that starts that nucleation process and helps basically everything, the chains kind of link up in the water and start connecting. And so you just see all of the liquid kind of connecting down and becoming an ice cube.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to watch.
Great experiment. It's cheap to do. Really doesn't cost you anything. You just need to get the water right, I suppose. Now back in 410, just a couple different episodes ago, we did talk about hail having some layers, and hail plays a role in supercooled water too, about when the stone gets formed and then when it starts tumbling. And there's a wide variety of reasons that those hailstones can grow, not just colliding with others, but also supercooled water getting onto the surface and freezing right away, much like you just mentioned, something to disturb those drops, and bam, they go into the freezing process immediately. There's also a hail formation experiment, or at least something to make the visual a little bit better for people. Yeah,
we alluded to this one back in 410 where we talked about why hail has layers. And actually kind of connecting these two, we talked a little bit about how you can get like a clear layer and a foggy layer. And that also deals a little bit with that purity of water and where that water is coming from as well. but for the hail formation experiment, this one's an easy one that most people can do. If you go, kids listening, ask mom if you can borrow her hair dryer with some supervision. Adults who want to be a kid, go grab a hair dryer.
That works.
That's the one appliance you need. You also need a ping pong ball, which some people have readily, some people maybe not, but a ping pong ball or something very similar in size and weight to that. You want it to be pretty light. And essentially, this one is loud. You turn on your hair dryer, put your ping pong ball over it, and you kind of let the ping pong ball loft. And you hold the hair dryer pointed up towards the ceiling. A lot of people maybe have seen something like this at a local science center or something like that. But essentially, even though the air is fairly steady from your hair dryer, your ping pong ball is going to kind of bobble up and down and up and down. It's not going to stay steady. And what essentially that's doing is your hair dryer is becoming your updraft. So it is the upward air, and it's staying kind of steadily moving up at a fairly constant rate, just as an updraft would more or less be. But your ping pong ball is getting kind of further from that stronger air and kind of going up and down and up and down and bobbling up and down. And in nature, what would be happening is that you're going to be collecting additional water droplets as that ball, that hail, is going up through the cloud, back down, up and down. And eventually, again, in nature, you're collecting and adding on to your size of your hail, and it will eventually become too much that the upward force of your updraft cannot outweigh the downward force of gravity pulling the weight of that hail down, and that's when you actually get hail at the surface. But yeah, it's another fun one and fairly easy. Again, just a ping pong ball and a hair dryer.
Yep, and it's all about the imbalance. Once it becomes too heavy, it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
It's going down.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you about a fun hail measurement device. We can't automate that. It's not an automated process. Some airports will report it as long as there's a human observer there to see it. But if you want a really cheap and easy way to do this, I think we are in the era now. Everybody gets stuff in the mail. Everybody. It could be, a big company that shares the name with a large rainforest that comes in overnight, right? Sometimes,
who could you ever be talking about?
Sometimes those come with pieces of styrofoam in there. Or if you get a new desk or a new chair, or maybe you have a college graduate in your family. I'm sorry, high school graduate. And maybe they're going to college, or college graduate. That works too. I'm thinking about people getting new things to their new chapters of life. And you might get a desk set or something that's got a big styrofoam panel in there. So a cool way those things are just junk. You have to just landfill those things. But you can cut them into squares, maybe a square foot, and wrap it in aluminum foil and keep it as smooth as possible. Mm-hmm. And those are actually, in the meteorology world, called hail pads. And you can sit them outside. The number one problem is, yes, they can blow away. They can blow away. But if they're stuck on the ground and the ground is wet, they actually kind of stick there pretty nice. And I put one of my hail pads out, which was nothing more than a square of styrofoam and just smooth, high quality, all-purpose aluminum foil. It looked like the surface of the moon when it was done because it was a pea-sized hailstorm. Mm-hmm. So there were some hits on the aluminum that were very small, others that were probably about pea-sized. Some of them came in at an angle, others came straight down. And as a weather spotter, you can report all that. And it keeps you in the safety of your house, and you don't have to worry about going out there to try and capture these things. Now, it is true that maybe you'll miss the biggest stone. That's possible. A golf ball size hailstone might fall in the storm and it happens to miss your hail pad. That's one thing. But it shows a wide variety of what the storm actually did. And there is an outfit out there, and it's called CoCoRahs. It's Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. And they're always looking for volunteer observers. So if you are a weather enthusiast, I don't know if they have an age limit. It might be 12 or higher. But if you've got like a 6th grader at home, 7th grader, 8th grader at home who's just obsessed with weather, it doesn't cost much to be on the network. All you got to do is pay for the official rain gauge they'd like you to do, which, by the way, I have found that meets World Meteorological Organization standards.
Yeah.
So if you measure 56/100ths of an inch, that actually goes into a database. And then after that, it goes to the National Centers for Environmental Information, and you're actually part of the weather record at your very own address. So
you do have to be over 13. I just
over
looked
13.
it up, but you can have a parent vouch for you. So
there you go.
If you,
so
yep.
Middle school and up, if you've got, a weather enthusiast. And the thing about CoCoRahs is if you care about it, you're more apt to report it every day. And you're also more apt to be more accurate too, because you care about what you're doing. It doesn't take much. There's an app on the phone. It takes 2 seconds. 2 seconds each day to go out there, take a look at the rain gauge, report it in. If you had some hail, you can throw it in there, and it helps the entire network. It helps the Weather Service. It helps broadcasters out. It helps the forensic community out. It helps everybody who uses that. So if you're looking for an outlet, maybe you've got a 6th or 7th grader at home who's bugging the heck out of you, and it's summer break, and we get storms in the summertime. Hey, Sam, you need to go be a CoCoRahs observer. Here's the link. You go to CoCoRahs.org, CoCoRahs.org, and you can sign up immediately to do it.
Great summer break activity because it gets the kids out of bed early in the morning, same time every day.
Observe by 7 a.m., no later.
Okay, so bonus question in here, because this isn't one we were asked, but it is one that I know we have both been asked, Kai. Why do you have to empty your rain gauge yourself? We have the technology for a fancy tipping bucket rain gauge that's automated. Why does CoCoRahs keep it at the good old fashioned person walks out and dumps the rain gauge out every single day?
Because it's going to be the most accurate with human eyes and human hands. We don't have any equipment malfunctions to worry about. If there's any leaks anywhere, it actually leaks into a second cylinder and it doesn't go into the first. That's the way it's done. It is nice to have an electronic backup, maybe if you're on vacation or something. But otherwise, that's how they've always done it. And that cylinder is a nice big piece of equipment. The numbers are big enough you can actually read it from your window if you hang that thing up close to your house. But don't go too close because you don't want the house to change how much rain is falling in your gauge. So mine is just outside the patio. It's probably 12 feet from any object, and it's bolted right to the neighbor's fence with their permission. And the top of it sits above all the fence posts and everything. And so it gets great accurate readings. And it's one of the few things in weather I honestly think we have left that has human eyes on it, because tipping buckets can have so many problems. A spider web could come in there. That's what I was going to throw in. Was an acorn could clog the funnel. There's all sorts of things that can happen there. You can get bird's nests to develop if you go through a 2-week drought and a bird decides it wants to nest up there. Good luck. You're going to underreport rain. Having somebody look at it every day, physically having to interact with it, you are least likely to have any false readings, basically, is what it comes down to. That's right. And it's really nice to see how storms really lay out, because you may have a neighbor 2 miles away who has something a little bit different as a thunderstorm moved through, and their reading is also correct. And that's the variability of rain and precipitation that airports just cannot quite grasp, because we don't have enough of them. That's the only reason why. If we had an airport sensor in every square mile of the country, it'd be awesome to see how these thunderstorms actually work. But we can't afford that. That's not happening. So we rely on volunteers, just like that. So it's good stuff. It's a really cool network. If you're a weather geek like us, and you're interested in that and you want to help contribute to the greater good, it's a great, easy entry point that genuinely does help all the meteorologists, National Weather Service, broadcast, everybody get a better picture of what is happening and be able to better improve forecasts in the future too. Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of people that rely on that data, no question. So that's a good thing to think about if you've got one more thing to do on your list this summer. Speaking of summer, we've got the trivia question coming up here, which will give you a few moments to think about. But here it is, Jan. You got 4 possible options. As we're looking ahead to June, July, August, how much hotter does direct sunshine make the temperature feel? Is it A, 5 to 10 degrees, B, 10 to 15, C, 15 to 20, or D, 20 to 25. So we'll give you
and
just
all
a
of
few
those are in
seconds.
Fahrenheit.
They're in Fahrenheit, yes.
For anybody listening who is not a Fahrenheit
Right.
person, it's not gonna change it by 25 degrees Celsius. I promise.
That'd be bad news. That'd be bad
That'd be
news. So,
intense.
all those are in Fahrenheit. We'll let you think about it. We'll be back here in just a few seconds.
Alrighty, welcome back. Hopefully you've had a little bit of time to think about that question. One more reminder, how much hotter does direct sunshine make the temperature feel? In degrees Fahrenheit, do you think it is 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, or 20 to 25? The answer is B, 10 to 15. So kind of common knowledge, I think, for us as meteorologists, Kai, that a true thermometer, a good temperature reading is done in the shade.
Yes.
But
Yep.
a lot of other people don't necessarily realize that. So, when you go outside and there's one day where it's cloudy and one day where it's sunny, both had a high of 80, that 80-degree day in the sunshine feels closer to 90, whereas that 80-degree day in the clouds is a true, more so 80-degree day. And people are like, wow, it's just so much like that sun. It genuinely does make it feel that much hotter by 10 or 15 degrees.
We had that happen at a soccer game earlier this month where we had a morning game that was sunny and it was warm. And then we had an afternoon game. The temp was actually slightly warmer, but the wind had come up a little bit, not much, but a little bit, and it had clouded over. And several parents had noted how much cooler it got. And I actually looked at the phone and I just kind of chuckled to myself. And it's like, actually, it's about the same.
Yeah.
It's just a cool 70 versus a warm 70. And that's a true thing. The sun plays a huge role in all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. And we'll get to that here. And especially if you're out there working in direct sunlight and your body is really, putting a lot of calories in here, that's when things get kind of dangerous, because you've got to get out of that sun, because it does wear on you for sure. Take some breaks.
Your body is constantly working to cool itself down with the sweat and everything, and the less chance you give it at helping itself, the quicker it gets dangerous. And that's why we say, find a shady spot, find an air conditioned spot if you are feeling the heat, because it genuinely does help. It cools you down. Again, that 10 or 15 degrees can make a world of difference.
Yep, you got it. One real quick thing before we wrap this season up and wrap this show up, Jan. Outflow boundaries. What are they, and what do they look like on radar? How do they impact storms? How do they impact our well-being as people? What are these things?
All kinds of questions about outflow boundaries, right? So this one came up because it's been a stormy spring here so far, and we've had a couple different storms coming through where people have asked, is this one gonna hit us? Is this gonna keep coming through? And I'm like, well, no, not really. It doesn't look like it. And what I'm seeing as a meteorologist, that maybe somebody who's looking at the radar with an untrained eye, is how these storms are moving around and how they may crash into each other, or how the outflow boundary may crash into it and die. So essentially what's happening is, as a storm is marching across, it is pushing out air. That air can, if it hits the surface, the earth, it can't go down anymore. It can't go into the center of the earth. It gets pushed out, and it just kind of smushes out in all directions. And what happens sometimes on radar, we can see this. You'll see a very thin little line that looks like maybe that's a little bit of rain, but it's just kind of following that same shape as the storm. And generally that's going to be an outflow boundary. What's actually happening there usually, again, as I said, it's the wind, the air that's kind of pushing down from the storm and pushing out away from it. It's generally picking up things like leaves or bugs or things and moving things around that are getting picked up on the radar then. And so that's why it's just this very thin little line that is basically the leading edge of that wind moving forward. And because it's wind, it's movement of air that can disturb storms around it, and it can do it can go both ways. It can, depending on the way that the outflow boundary is moving and the storms around it are moving, it can both kill a storm. It can also intensify a storm. If two outflow boundaries collide with each other, you could get all of a sudden, instead of air moving across the surface, air that is forced upward, and that will then create clouds in another storm. So it can kind of go both ways, and it's very interesting to watch them. But sometimes when people say, oh, that storm came out of nowhere, there wasn't anything there, and all of a sudden it just blew up right there. That could be one of the things that's happening.
Yep. One way to do a little experiment at your house, if you want to visualize what Jan just said, because I think that was said about perfectly. So it depends how messy you want to get. Okay. It depends how messy you want to get. A lot of people have phones with slow motion camera capability. I like that. Mm-hmm. Grab a bucket or a cup of water. Have somebody record it off the sidewalk, maybe 6 feet away. Zoom in where you're going to drop it and do a super slow-mo and dump the cup out straight down. Water comes down. What does it do? Just like you said, hits the ground and spreads out. It's probably going to spread in all directions. But in the very moment evenly. When you do that, you're probably more concerned about not getting wet. But you're going to see it in the slow-mo, how it spreads out. Same thing with the storm. Air that's rain-cooled, why does it go down? It's denser, weighs more. Down and out, it spreads, and it's cold too. And so as a result, it's not uncommon before a storm hits to get a sudden push of air that's 20 degrees cooler that blows in, maybe a minute or two ahead of that storm. So
some people will call it a gust front.
Yep, a gust front. And sometimes you can track the speeds of those and actually figure out what your winds might be too, if that's coming in, because there's no reason not to, because if it's moving that fast on radar, the air is moving at least that fast when it gets to you, So, and one thing that we need to watch for, we've seen it now 2 summers in a row, dust events in the Midwest. When it's really dry and a sudden gust front like that comes up and dust gets in the air, you can actually see reduced visibility with that. So something to think about as we go into June, and the first half of May has certainly been drier. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out as we go into the summer. But you have now spent another 27 minutes with us, and you have now closed out our 4th season here of Weathered Questions. So
1 year.
1 year, Jan. That's amazing. Who knew we thought we'd get along this long, huh?
Right?
It's a long time.
Thank you to everyone for listening, because you're the reason we do it, and we love doing it. We're happy.
Yeah. Yep, we hear from you. We enjoy it, and we hope to hear a lot more from you. We're going to start next season off in June. We're going to take next week off for the Memorial Day holiday, so hopefully you get some family catch-up time in yourselves as well, and just an extra day there going into next week, and we'll just reset everything as we move our way into June. If something comes up and you're having a family gathering perhaps this weekend and a weather question comes up, you can send it to us, weatheredquestions@gmail.com, to join in on the conversation. Thanks very much for 4 great seasons. We'll see you for season 5. Stay safe.